In this episode of the Construction Lending Podcast, we meet with Jim Adams and Lloyd Sand from Voxtur. They cover the options and use cases for attorney opinion letters and title insurance and the benefits they bring to homeowners and lenders alike.
So what is title insurance? Basically, it's insurance that says what you purchase, you own.
The first time in my career, I've actually seen AOL being mentioned in the same breath as title insurance now as a vehicle to use in case, let's say, a lender doesn't want to use their title waiver option. They can go ahead and use either a traditional title or an attorney opinion letter.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the Construction Lending Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Ferris, and today we have two fantastic guests. Both from Voxtur. First guest, Lloyd Sand. Lloyd, I've known you for a long time. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Lloyd is VP of Enterprise Business Development at Voxtur. And also with Lloyd today, we have Jim Adams, President of Voxtur Settlement Services. Thank you both for joining the podcast today. This is exciting.
Pleasure. Glad to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Now, as we kind of get everybody acclimated to our conversation today, I think a great place to start is just learning a little bit more about you guys and Voxtur, and how you guys ended up at Voxtur.
Jim, you want to start off and I'll...
Sure, yeah. So I've been in title and escrow world for about 25 years now. And before that, I actually sold data to title companies that they use for searches. It was back in the day when Experian owned all the data before First American bought Experian and then merged with CoreLogic. So that was how I got my feet wet in the mid to late 90s, is selling data to title companies. And then I went to work for First American Title and worked my way up through the company. Ultimately ended up as the head of all customer-facing technology. So anything that a buyer, seller, borrower, real estate agent, lender would see that First American produced, it came through my operation. Left First American in 2015 and started a company that provided software to title companies. And then worked that, recently bought, or about 3-4 years ago, bought a title company in Nevada. And then recently, I still own that. And recently I was asked to help out with Voxtur and their growth. And so I, about 6 months ago, joined the team at Voxtur in the role of president.
Fantastic. Lloyd, what about you?
Yeah, well, my career, I actually, prior to Voxtur for the past 30 to 35 years, have been in the MI capital markets realm, where I participated in providing support to lenders throughout the country, as well as investors, all market participants I used to deal with for matchmaking support, whole loan activity, really everything after the loan was originated, which brings me to where I am today. I actually joined Voxtur about 3 years ago, almost to the day. And what appealed to me most about Voxtur was its ability to have different verticals that we own, including Voxtur Settlement Services, which Jim manages. That was a very strong appeal to me because we had both the attorney opinion letter, which is a title alternative. It happened about a year after I joined Voxtur, which I was very excited about, as well as traditional title, which we still to this very day get a lot of calls for on a nationwide basis. We also have different verticals that we're involved with, which I'm very excited about. We have a lien monitoring system in our data group. Our data team is very active, especially with title underwriters, asset managers, servicers. So we do business with all different types of entities. We also get involved. We have a valuations team that's working closely with the GSEs right now to do some walk through. It's sort of like a cutting edge appraisal services where there's going to be more direction going towards more of a report based appraisal than actual forms. So very excited about being on that part of the spectrum. as well as we also own a capital markets trading platform called Blue Water. So we have a lot of exciting things, both in the servicing and capital markets realm, which is really my background. Jim is really the title specialist, although I've had direct dealings and more dealings with the implementation and rollout for the attorney opinion letter. So that's why that's my background.
This is exciting. This is exciting. So we've had, in previous podcasts, we had an amazing podcast learning about title research and, kind of how the, sausage is made when it comes to finding and researching title and all of that information. But, Lloyd, one thing that you just brought up is this attorney opinion letter or AOL. And, like others, I just keep hearing this term come up. I think even President Biden brought some sort of title reform or title opportunities up in his most recent State of the Union. Why is it that we keep hearing more and more about AOL and what that actually is and means to the mortgage universe?
AOL has been brought up more and more in the trade publications, and certainly is an initiative of the current administration in trying to lower the borrower's closing costs. And one way to do it is through an alternative title policy. It definitely is not effective on each and every title policy. It's not to replace title insurance. I want to make that clear to the guests here, to the audience. But I do want to suggest that it is similar to what's going on in the valuation market, the collateral valuation market, and you're seeing, waivers or alternative valuation products in lieu of your traditional appraisal. You may see more of that in the title insurance space relative for the future in terms of trying to find, an effective way, an efficient way, a cost-effective way, but also to try to provide some sort of savings to the consumer / borrower, and also by not taking away the effectiveness of what title insurance has provided over the last 40 or 50 years. And that is excellent coverage for the type of risk that's being underwritten. So I think it's got to be a nice balance of all three to really make it work effectively. But you're going to hear more and more about attorney opinion letters. You may hear about the waivers, although there is some discussion now about they have to go through the normal channels of implementing a new product pilot through the GSEs. So you're hearing a lot from the MBA and certainly from Alta regarding that particular policy that seems to be being addressed now in Congress and certainly with the major decision makers on that. But the first time in my career, I've actually seen AOL being mentioned in the same breath as title insurance now as a vehicle to use in case, let's say, a lender doesn't want to use their title waiver option. They can go ahead and use either a traditional title or an attorney opinion letter.
Well, let's take a big step back. Right?
Yep.
As you're talking there, I think in order to really, kind of dive into what the differences are, maybe it'd be good to start off with, well, what is title insurance and why is it even necessary?
I can take that, Lloyd. I can kind of tell you what title insurance is and what it isn't. And while we hear a lot about, title insurance companies very rarely pay claims. That's very true. And part of that is we do our job right. It's important to do our job. And we'll kind of get into that. You've done it before, searches, but what title insurance is. But we get called a lot of times on oddball claims, oddball issues, and we get sued constantly. I'll give you an example of one right now that we're being sued for, and I'll probably end up having to settle for something, even though we did absolutely nothing wrong. We had an investment buyer who came in and made an offer on a home. The girl accepted the offer. She had bought the home about a year and a half ago for $575,000. The offer that they made to her was $325,000. They then came back and offered her $250,000, and then shortly thereafter, within days, assigned it for $65,000 fee. I had never met the lady, don't know her. So I called to validate that she was aware, that she knew what she was doing, A, that she was of sound mind, that maybe it wasn't an elder abuse situation. It wasn't fraudulent. As we all know, seller deed fraud is one of the number one things happening in the title industry right now. She gave me very good answers. She just wanted to get rid of the house, didn't want to deal with it anymore. She owned no loans on it. Okay, she understood what was going on. We progressed. Eventually, the lady finally got a real estate agent, and they ended up canceling the transaction. Well, now the investor is suing us because she canceled the transaction. Well, that'll never go as a title claim, but I'm having to pay the legal fees, and I'm going to have to pay, there'll be some sort of settlement that will never go as a title claim that we pay. So that's always an interesting thing that comes up. Well, title companies very rarely pay claims. Yes, but we get sued all the time and we pay all the time. So what is title insurance? Title, the easiest way is basically it's insurance that says what you purchase, you own. And if anyone comes back and says differently, we'll protect you, we'll fight for you in court. And if there is a loss, we'll pay it. We do that both for the owner of the property as well as the lender if there is a loan on the property. And they're two separate policies because they have two separate insurance amounts. So when you purchase a home, it's on the purchase price. And when you take a loan, it's on the loan amount. And as the loan gets paid off, then that policy gets smaller and smaller. The other thing that's important to note that sometimes it doesn't happen. It's funny. I talked to a gentleman probably about 2 weeks ago. He was previously using another title company, and the title company wasn't giving him concurrent rates. So they were charging him for an owner's policy and they were charging him for a lender's policy. And he called me and said, why is it? Why do I have to buy these two policies and pay full price? Like, you shouldn't be. You should be paying for an owner's policy, and the concurrent lender is usually $25 to $50 somewhere in there, depending on the state you're in. So he actually went back and they reimbursed him the monies, but those are things that you want to look out for. So there is a title policy for the owner, a policy for the lender, and they have two different rates, but if you buy them concurrently, you get one of them at a huge discount.
So at the end of the day, I'm going to kind of summarize and recap what you said. At
Sure.
the end of the day, if I'm going to buy a property, what title insurance helps me understand is it puts trust that what I'm buying, this square right here with everything on it, is what it is, and that I'm not going to be, there's not somebody else that actually owns it. Is that kind of a way to think about it? Like the seller owns this and they're selling it to me and I'm getting what I'm getting.
Correct. Or you could be saying, hey, we might come to you and say, hey, Sean, you're buying this, but by the way, Verizon, you bought 120 acres, but Verizon has an easement to get into your property that's in the back right corner because there's a cell tower in it. So we will insure it, but be aware that there's this easement that gets in, that you have to allow Verizon to get into your property. So we notify you of things like that there may be public or private. Maybe there's a landlocked parcel behind you and the owners there have an easement through your property to get to their property. So we'll notify you of those type of issues on your title as well.
Now, I'm thinking about how this could pertain to construction.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times that we're starting with, a vacant lot that has some sort of maybe on-site improvements. They brought water or some utility to the property. Is it safe to say that, when I get title insurance that, hey, the property is what the property is, and here's the boundaries, and here's the easements and setbacks, and And I should have confidence that that's free and clear of any liens, including mechanics liens.
Correct.
Okay.
So we're gonna do that search as long as the previous individuals that did the work, if they were owed money and they recorded the mechanics lien within their timely fashion that they have to record it by, then we'll pick it up and that would be covered.
Okay. And there's usually, from my experience, and correct me if I'm wrong, so say state to state, the laws are different. And, I know inspecting the property leading up to the consummation of that loan is really important. Just for, a lot of lenders, they drive by the property, they make sure, nobody's out there doing a bunch of grading right before the construction starts. It's simply because that party, depending on the state, right, that party that's doing the work may actually have a super lien over a mortgage that has yet to be recorded. So when they go record the mortgage in a couple days, that person out there moving dirt or doing whatever they're doing, even if it's dropping stuff off to the site, they may have a priority because they began their process before title. Now, in those cases, how does title sort those things out?
It'll be listed in your exclusions. Mm-hmm. So if there's something that we come across or we are aware of, we'll list it. Hey, we'll provide insurance excluding these items here for broken priority. The other thing you talked about going out and viewing the property is we also on a lot of the disbursements. So if we're going to do multiple disbursements, it could be, they want to make sure that the foundation is completed. And so again, sometimes title companies will do that. And again, we go out and just go, yep, there's a foundation there. We're not a full inspector, but we can go back to the lender and say, we saw a foundation. We don't know if it's 100% right, but it looked done to us, so that happens on occasion. And some lenders, want a full inspection. So they'll have another inspection company do that.
And they kind of ballpark it to any setbacks or easements of like, there's a lake in the back, but hey, it looked like about 100 yards off. We'll issue an endorsement, right? Like a foundation endorsement, I think is what they.
Correct. Yes.
Location, foundation, some of the nomenclatures it differs region to region.
And some of them are date down endorsement. So they'll say, hey, we're ready to issue another round of funding. So do a date down for us. So we're going to go back. We're going to relook from the time we did our last search to this. Has there been any new liens filed? Has there been any mechanics liens filed? Is there anything that's going to hold up on that? And then we'll, provide that additional endorsement and then they disperse.
That's great. Now, so now we kind of get a good understanding of what title insurance is or is and is not. Now, with what Lloyd was saying earlier about the AOL or attorney opinion letter, what are the differences? Are they exactly the same? Are they just issued by different parties? Like, how does this? What apples to oranges? What are we talking about?
The policies are very similar. We spent about 3.5 years with the regulators and Fannie and Freddie as well to design the product to their liking and to their acceptability. Full coverage from order intake to recording. There is no gap. We also provide a closing protection letter which includes borrower fraud protection and agency review and approval. So we have all that. We have a duty to defend clause in there. We do provide, which is an exception to title insurance, we do provide some form of repurchase insurance if there's any title harm associated with the submission or the acceptance of an attorney opinion letter. So that's the only additional feature. So all the coverages are very similar. We had an MBA independent study done back in October or September of this past year by Blank Rome, which is publicly available to anybody who wants to see it. But it's a study that went over Voxtur's AOL program, the attorney opinion letter, which they referred to as the enhanced AOL, because it truly is enhanced in terms of additional coverages that were not available on previous attorney opinion letter programs, and I use that in quote. So I hope that answers your question as far as policy. As far as guideline goes, the GSEs, Fannie Mae is not in lockstep with Freddie currently. Fannie came out with enhancements to the attorney opinion letter back in December of 2023. But Fannie's enhancements now allow for any loans with covenants, conditions, and restrictions. So they allow now for condos, PUDs, townhomes, etc., where Freddie's original guidelines back in 2008 do not allow that today. But my understanding is they're in discussion, or we're in discussions with them to maybe match Fannie Mae at some future point. We don't know when that calendar date is yet, but that is in the works. It is available in all 50 states. Fannie Mae came out with a primer as well as their guideline changes back in December of 2023. And they talked about being available in all 50 states as opposed to their current language, which basically said it was just available in those areas that are most popular to do an attorney opinion letter, which are very few areas in the United States today. So they've kind of changed that as well back in December. The other piece that is very critical is that the attorney opinion letter is only available up to loan amounts up to $1 million today. So anything in excess of $1 million today would have to go traditional title. We are talking to the property casualty insurance companies about potentially raising that to maybe $1.5 million, but there's no estimated time for arrival for that either. So right now it's really loan amounts up to $1 million. We could do both GSE business, which you would be under the guidelines of whatever the GSEs would allow, or we could do some portfolio loans as well, as long as it has a 600 minimum FICO and LTVs, CLTVs cannot exceed 100%.
So it sounds like there's some nuances, underwriting requirements that, I start seeing a decision tree, populating.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead, Lloyd.
Yeah, which plays into our best options calculator. Voxtur is agnostic on whether the borrower goes title or attorney opinion letter. So we have available today a best options calculator that calculates both a title insurance policy versus attorney opinion letter to see where it fits. And really a best fit would be, if it's outside the guidelines of, say, if it's $1.5 million property, it has to go traditional title.
You just
I believe too, it has to be their primary residence. Is that correct, Lloyd?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily. It could be a second home.
Really interesting with this calculator, and I think best options. Is this something that every lender has today? That, hey, we're providing, the LE or preparing the CD, whatever cost estimations, titles usually not something that's like, yeah, I wanted to go to this title company. You're buying your first home. You may not know. Like, is this something that the lender is, every lender has this type of calculator to help them with what the best decision is for that borrower? Because it sounds like it's complicated.
They would have it available. Right now, we have it available to all our clients who are interested in the attorney opinion letter, but we tell them right up front that not every transaction is going to be a fit for the attorney opinion letter. Traditional title may be a better play for that particular loan and that particular borrower, which really falls into play of the CFPB's recent announcement on their blog in early March about going after quote unquote junk fees, which includes lender title fees. So this is a clear indication that this could be a nice feature to have when you're trying to document where the borrower is best, where the best option is for that borrower. And whether they choose to go a different route, that's their choice.
Yeah. And depending on the state, there are some states there's variances between underwriters. So in one state, an underwriter A may be less than underwriter B in a certain price category. And so we offer, hey, this policy from this underwriter is your best option and price.
Yeah. I just think of, kind of going through that mortgage experience and sitting down and somebody presenting me with options. Is that kind of what it's like from a consumer perspective is, hey, you've got these options. This is the, option A or option B that you can go shop for, and they're
Yep.
making a decision. Is that how it works today with the calculator?
Correct. So what we would do is when they put in the property address, we pull the property, they put in the loan amount. So we have some information there, and then instantly we quote back saying this underwriter for this loan value is this underwriter is this, AOL is this. So it could be that traditional in some areas is a better price and a better fit than the AOL, and the lender will see all three of those options.
And is this something every lender is utilizing today, or if some like, hey, they're not quite to the calculator yet?
We wish they were all utilizing it today.
This is relatively new. Yeah, this is something we're implementing.
Okay, yeah, no, this is really important because I do think that as you get this chatter, and I think back and what it was like post financial crisis 06, 07, and that kind of long drawn out recovery, and then the CFPB finally getting around to like, hey, here's how to do it safely, and then everybody rushing to get the technology with what they were advising. I mean, this sounds like something that definitely should be on everybody's radar in the sense of like, well, how do you evidence that you helped present the right options? Is that what it boils down to?
Yep.
When, let's kind of expand here. When will, or in obvious terms or in general terms, when is one better than the other? When is it better to have title insurance versus an attorney opinion letter?
It's going to be really state specific and price point specific. So it's really difficult to say, oh, this is when it always ends up being better, because in different states, rates are promulgated. In some states, it's, a free for all. So it really is going to be state specific and property specific, value specific.
And overall, what are the kind of the expectations? Do you think this is going to help drive down overall costs to the consumer that they're paying on their financing, or?
That's what our goal is to say, hey, whether it's traditional title or whether it's AOL, we're not pushing one over the other. We're trying to figure out what's best for the consumer.
And what about a construction loan, right? We'll do an example of a construction loan and a renovation loan. Can you get an AOL on proposed construction?
No, not currently.
Not currently. So if I wanted to go, I would have to go the traditional title insurance route for proposed construction. Now, what about for renovation?
Renovation is not acceptable under the Fannie Freddie guidelines today.
Okay, so it's both are exempt for construction and for renovation.
Yeah, and if you're doing renovation, the best way and what's not offered with an AOL would be a binder policy. So you're going to want to do traditional with a binder.
Now, is this, what if I was portfolioing the loan? Hey, I'm a bank, I'm a credit union. Is it simply like it's not going to work for Fannie and Freddie, or is it not going to work if I wanted a portfolio of the loan?
If you could portfolio the loan, as long as it meets the guidelines, the 600 FICO and the CLTV, LTV less than 100, we would be able to do that.
Oh, that's interesting.
Under an attorney opinion letter for renovation loan.
Okay. Now, is it simply because it wouldn't work for Fannie and Freddie on new construction simply because they don't buy new construction? Or would this be, hey, they had an attorney opinion letter in the interim construction period, but when it goes to modify and convert, right, and then it's eligible to be purchased by Fannie, would it work in those situations where there's a new title policy when it converts or modifies?
For the permanent loan, yes.
Ooh. So now we're making some progress. Yeah, it sounds like, hey, there's probably more things to discuss in the mechanics of those loans. And
Oh yeah, yeah. And one thing,
certainly.
Sean, which I forgot to mention too, is that the attorney opinion letter in Voxtur's structure of the attorney opinion letter, the insurance covers both the lender's policy and the owner's policy is all built in as one coverage. So the owner is covered.
And it's the same, it's like similar cover, like, hey, I got a loss, both of them kick in.
Right.
Wow, that's great.
Correct.
That's great. Is anything besides the, hey, based on the state, I go, I'm looking to get it in, right? Based on the credit score, based on the loan value and some other attributes in there. Are there any other different speed, time? I know turn time's kind of a big deal. Like, are there any differences mechanically in any of the other kind of metrics?
Yeah, the big pickup in operations, Jim, I'll take this one. The operations pickup is one of those unintended consequences that turned out to be a positive was the final letter, the attorney opinion letter, could be submitted back to the lender within days, if not the same day of closing. So as opposed to waiting and creating a cottage industry of chasing final title policy documents, which could take weeks or months in some cases, we have found that it takes literally within days of closing. When closings, everything has been honored in the closing process, we can have that final letter back within a few days. And the reason for that is because we don't wait for recordation. As soon as the loan is closed, we could submit a final letter along with the insurance coverage.
Are AOLs available in all 50 states?
Yes.
Interesting. Very interesting. And if they're available in all 50 states, why, when would it not be a good fit to look into this? Is there a specific, lender persona, ideal lender that, having this decision calculator would be great for? I imagine if you only do business in one state, it's probably a lot less important. But if I'm doing business in all 50 states, wouldn't it kind of be important to have some sort of calculator and decisioning?
Yeah, we believe so. Certainly, that's the feeling we have, and that's the feeling our clients have. Our existing clients are desiring to have a calculator to make it easier for their LOs to calculate the difference at the point of sale, and that's what we're trying to. We have a submission into Encompass now to put it in there in the LOS system to make it even easier for lenders to utilize. So
everybody will be using this at some point.
We're definitely all behind it because we think there's a real value in being, number one, agnostic to the selection by the borrower, but giving them the best possible offer for that particular loan, at least making it available to them.
Can you get AOLs from any title company, like nationally? If I'm does everybody have this?
Currently, no. We are the only title company that's offering it. We were the inventor of the software to the attorney opinion letter.
And how long has this, so you guys have just streamlined it and made it efficient, but how long have attorney opinion letters, when were these things created? Is this brand new this year or?
Well, attorney opinion letters have been around hundreds of years. So it's not new to anybody. And that's why we went to the regulators is we tried to grow the attorney opinion letter concept and make it like an attorney opinion letter that has deep insurance coverages attached to it, as opposed to just being an attorney opinion letter. And then we went to each of the state bar associations to approve the letter for use. So there is some uniqueness amongst the various states in the United States regarding the attorney opinion letter. But what we have tried to avoid is individual attorneys opining on each and every loan, because that's where it really took a lot of time, and that's where it's auto-populates to their screen so they could review the information right in front of them, as Jim alluded to, with all the search and all the information that's required for traditional title.
Interesting. Now, why has not everybody rushed to adopt this? And I would say adopt this, more so on the calculator part of, hey, I want this efficiency in helping me with a defendable decision. Why is everybody just not chomping at the bit to do it?
Well, I'll say it in two ways. One is, if you remember MERS and the MERS identification number as being one, that was not embraced by the market, and it took a few years for the market to embrace it, until a small little company called Countrywide came in and instituted a consequence fee for not using the MERS identification number, and then all of a sudden the market quickly embraced it. E-Notes is the same thing. I hate to pick on MERS; they're a great company, and ICE is a great organization, but the E-Notes has been slow to adopt too. The mortgage industry is very slow to adopt any change, and we're seeing that both on the aggregator investor level as well as the lender level, because the lenders are looking at it as, what's the risk to us? And there's been a lot of trade publication information, both for and against the attorney opinion letter, although the GSEs are very much in favor of it, and so are the regulators. There's been a slow adoption rate that's really, I put the time clock since April of 2022, because that's when Fannie Mae matched Freddie's guidelines. And now we're seeing the same thing until Freddie matches Fannie's guidelines, which is supposed to happen soon. We just don't know when. That will help with liquidity in the secondary market. And then investors would probably have less of an excuse as lenders go and approach them and say, hey, can you buy the attorney opinion letter and create more liquidity? So we assume, with that added liquidity and with both programs matching each other, that in fact the balls will start turning and people will start embracing. And I have lenders on hold now waiting for the Freddie Mac match before they go out and offer the attorney opinion letter. But it's coming.
Do you see this as a situation where the aggregators or investors will start imposing a little fee on their purchases if there's not some sort of defense into the decision that was made for title versus AOL? Do you see that as an actual, as kind of the news picks up and the penalties start kind of rolling out and people get targets on their back over the issue? Do you see it as being that simple?
I really, from a thought process from my end, it was more of a lender benefit and a borrower benefit. It wasn't necessarily used as a vehicle for a consequence in terms of implementing a fee or a penalty. But yeah, if there's some examples that the CFPB takes along with this recent blog announcement, I could see any number of things happening. One being that, which is great foresight on your side. I did not see that coming. I was hoping that the market would embrace it and use it as a defense mechanism against any regulatory action against them, as a vehicle to do what's best for the borrower and just offer both, like Jim said, all those quotes that they'll have available to them, and then they can make the decision based on what's best to them.
As as you start to see growth and you start to see more traction with this product, where do you see it, 5-10 years down the road?
My vision is that I see it as just another option available to the consumers, whether it's a complete title waiver, which if that ever gets implemented, that's just another option, just like it is. I would use this segment of the business similar to what's going on in collateral valuations today, where you see different alternative valuation products, which are very attractive to non-GSE lenders specifically, and then you see waivers to certain title requests that come through based on the underwrite of the loan or maybe the data that's available for that property, and then eventually you'll see options, other alternatives that could be available to those borrowers and or lenders that are price sensitive and want to do the best thing, best fit, so to speak, for the consumer. And then, of course, you have your traditional title, which I don't see going away anytime soon. You've got definitely a market that they serve. It's underserved, and they continue, like Jim said, they've done a great job on the front end with the low claims paying that's gone on. It's partly due to the underwriting of those loans. So I think there's a lot of credence to that as well.
Yeah. But, I think if we're going to talk realistically about driving down the cost of home ownership, there are a lot of areas that we as a industry can focus on. And title is certainly can be one of them. But if you look at a typical transaction, we're usually the lowest cost in that transaction. Between all the parties that have their hand in it, we probably make the smallest. Even when you start talking about some of the HOAs, there's zero regulation on the HOAs. And I can tell you in Nevada, there's times where the HOA companies walk away with twice the amount of money that a title company makes between title and escrow just to produce the closing statement and the documents needed to pass on to the new buyer. So I think there's a lot of areas that we could look at if we're going to drive down the cost of home ownership. Not just focusing on title.
Yes, all that news with the National Association of Realtors, it seems like there's...
Yeah,
I think we'll see a lot of changes coming up in the next 12, 24 months. And
I think it's good for our children. And, the next generation's trying to buy a home. Home prices are so high. How can we, help them get into... I watched my kids struggle to get in their first home. If they didn't have help from, other avenues, they probably wouldn't have been able to do it. And it's just a costly venture to get into home ownership.
Yeah, no, this has been just really, really helpful. And, just myself personally, I feel like I have a better understanding of what an AOL is and title insurance and how they both interact. I think the calculator that you guys have is just groundbreaking in a lot of ways, and to help out a lot of consumers and people buying a home. It's just absolutely amazing. And thank you both for that. But we get to the end here of the podcast. We have a rapid fire session, and I've never done it with two people on the line at the same time. But I gotta be.
We'll let Lloyd answer them all. He's the smart guy.
I'm curious if you recently discovered a product that you absolutely love and recommend.
Okay, so this is going to be a little, self-serving. So on the product front is actually another product that a partner and I have developed that is really changing in the industry, and Lloyd would know what it is. It's called Equity Protect. And what we are doing is truly protecting home ownership. So 75 million homes in the U.S. have no sort of mortgage. So there's vacant land, regular homes, second homes, no sort of mortgage, no encumbrances. And those properties are being stolen through deed theft. We are not a title monitoring company like you'll see on the TV constantly. Hey, sign up for this and we'll notify you if something's happened. We actually, working with Alta, the lead counsel for Alta, have come up a way to truly lock down that title and protect that home from being stolen. So it's a commercial, but it's a great product and people should really be looking at it.
Interesting. Is it kind of like freezing, like you lock your credit so nobody can do anything on it? Just kind of very simple.
Exactly that way. So when you're ready to actually refi or you're ready to sell your home, we have a number on that particular contract. So a title company would go to our website, they type into that service agreement number, it would pop up, notify you, Sean, saying, hey, are you really trying to refinance your house or sell it? You'd say yes or no. If you say no, we'd notify the title company if this is fraudulent.
That's awesome. Maybe for another podcast, but that's
really. But it's a great product.
Yeah, no, I really want to learn more. I think that one's great.
Yeah.
All right. If you had a choice between an AOL, Jim, and a traditional title policy, and both were exactly the same, which one would you choose?
Oh, good question.
Gotcha.
I guess I would go with whichever one cost me the least.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is that the big driver that people are just going to lean towards? Is 90% of them are going to pay whichever one's cheaper?
It's exactly. Especially when you have a lot of times, as a buyer, you don't have to buy title insurance. You just have to buy the loan policy. You don't have to have owner's insurance. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true, but you're sitting out there naked. So, I think if we're able to drive down that cost, then.
All right. This very similar question coming forward. This is going to be the last question I'm going to ask each of you. Slightly different, but Lloyd, if you could change one piece of mortgage legislation, law, CFPB regulation, Fannie change, what would it be? You'd snap your fingers once. What change would you make?
Snap of fingers once. I think I would change probably the CFPB in their transparency. Not necessarily the legislation, but the transparency.
How so?
You just never know what they're looking for and what they're looking at. And I think since they first came into being, and I could talk about this could be a separate topic, but when they first came into being, no one kind of knew what their MO was. And we know they're fully supported by whatever particular lawsuit they win or whatever allegations they make, and lenders usually are confined to either settling or just paying it outright. And I think that could add cost to the industry because there's a lot of concern and consternation about how to conduct business and what is acceptable and what's not. And there's no clearly defined rules in that area. So I think that would be another place I think would be to try to provide clear definition as to rules and regulations and what needs to be followed and adhered to, and make sure there's no loopholes because there's always a couple of rebels out there to try to do something that's different. I mean, I see that in all aspects of the business, but that's the area I'm most concerned with.
Yeah,
still
the funding by fines does not.
Funding by fines doesn't feel right to me.
It doesn't feel right. If everybody was doing the right thing,
right.
That's where it starts to get, and you get to the where you get a lot more consistency and everything's on the up and,
right.
Where do we look to give the fine or else I got to lay off Joe's department over there because,
right.
All right, we got to manufacture evidence here to make this thing look bigger. And hey, we don't actually have to prove anything. So, hey, here's your fine.
Right. And an adjunct to that would be when the states start creating their own CFPB. So you have the state CFPB on top of the federal CFPB. You're just adding a lot more layers of audits or just, microscope that I don't think is necessary in today's world. I don't.
Well, same question to you, Jim. Like, snap your fingers, last wish in the genie bottle to change any kind of regulation.
Watching that we're getting a younger generation of buyers, that more lenders would allow online notary. Because I look at my kids, my daughter bought her first house, never stepping foot in it. She looked at everything online. It was the one she wanted, never went and saw it and bought it. So I think gearing ourselves more for that younger generation that's going to want to do most everything online is being prepared for that.
I love it. I love online notary. If you've ever done it,
it's awesome.
Notarize, like I remember the first time using that and meeting the CEO of that. I was like, this is ingenious, and you don't have to go make an appointment or it's right there on demand.
I agree.
It's amazing.
Yep.
Hey, thank you both very much.
Thank you for having us.
Really appreciate you guys. If somebody wanted to reach out more and learn about AOLs, who should they get in contact with? And
yeah, Sean, have them get in touch with me. I'd be more than happy to go over a discussion with them and go over the product and on more high level and low level as well. I could be reached at lloyd.san, SAN as in Nancy, at Voxtur, VOXTUR.com.
That's fantastic. And anybody looking for the decision calculator, contact you as well?
Yes, please.
All right. And then, Jim, if they wanted to reach out to you to learn more about your background and Voxtur and what you guys have to offer,
Sure.
what's your contact information?
I am jim.adams@voxtur.com.
All right. Fantastic, guys. Thank you both so much for being on the podcast today. Can't say
Thank you, Sean.
enough, but
Thank
hope
you,
to have
Sean.
back soon.
Absolutely.
All right. Appreciate it.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
This podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only and does not replace independent professional judgment. Land Gorilla Inc. makes no representations, warranties, or promises for and disclaims any express or implied warranties related to content. Before acting on any information, you should consider the appropriateness of the information as it pertains to your unique business needs.